In this video, I'm going to be covering a magazine article that was written by forconstructionpros.com. And the title of the magazine article is Best Practices for Starting a Striping Business. What's interesting about the writer is that he polls 3 people that are already in the industry. And the answers that they say are definitely going to help anybody that is interested in starting a striping business. So the article starts off by saying, tips from longtime striping contractors on what products, services, and different types of equipment are good for those starting out or looking to add a striping division to their existing business. This was written on May 8th of 2023 by Brandon Knoll. So let's see what he says. When the time comes and you decide to start a striping business, or add a striping division to your already established business, there can be a lot of questions that linger around where to truly begin. Below, we spoke to a handful of striping pros who know how to get the job done because they've been where you are and have asked the same questions you're asking. We thought it best to share their answers in their own words as much as possible. To keep things simple, we asked each contractor the same 3 questions. Now, this is very, very interesting. They polled 3 different stripers and asked them the same question about the best practices to start a striping business. So these were the 3 questions that they asked. What is your current go-to striping machine and why? All right, so this question is geared towards more of where they're at now and why that is the case. The second question is, if you were starting from scratch and getting into striping, what equipment would you start with? And then question number 3 is, what is the one piece of real advice you give someone looking to get into the business of striping? So right here in the first person that is brought up is Mark Captain Striper Estrada from Marathon Solutions. Now, I met this guy at Pavex, very friendly guy. He was teaching a class and it was very beneficial and helpful. So he goes on to say, the Greco 200 HS dual color with line driver ES, he calls it the ultimate hybrid setup. Now, if you guys are familiar with what I'm talking about, this is the machine of the video that we showed at the demo at Pavex, where Chad Young was on that striping machine and then telling you about the benefits of using that machine. This is the exact machine that he's talking about. So he calls it the cutting edge of what Greco delivers, and it is. It's a great machine. Nothing beats the ability to apply 2 colors that's hydraulically driven with an auto layout, laser guidance capabilities. Then he goes on to say, I added on the smoothness of the electric line driver powered by LiPo batteries. There's just no comparison. So the first thing he says is, what's the current go-to striping machine and why? So Mark Estrada says that he prefers the Greco 200. Now, he says, when we originally started, we were just trying to find an affordable machine that laid down the lines. Now, this is very, very important, and I'm glad that he said this, because there is this misconception that immediately when you start out, you've got to have the best, most expensive equipment to get started with, which is very understandable. But if you already have an existing business, I mean, if you've got a landscaping company, if you're seal coating or paving and you haven't added striping yet, well, then of course it makes sense to add a high dollar piece of equipment. It makes sense to want to invest money in this when you can accomplish the best results in the shortest amount of time. But most people that are getting into this don't have an expensive budget to pay for one of these machines. I think one of these machines is like up to 20 grand plus with all the setup. Okay, so a lot of people don't have that kind of money. So I like what he says right here. He says, when we originally started, we were just trying to find an affordable machine that laid down the lines. Wonderful advice. I know guys that have their first job, they did it with paint, tape, and rollers and made $5,000 on their first job, hand rolling. We started with a Titan 3500, got a Graco 3400, and then we recently just bought a 3900. So now we have 3 machines. but I wanted to wait until I had an existing customer base before I just went and invested a lot of money and got into a bunch of debt before I had a good understanding of what my customer acquisition aspects were going to be like. If you're just starting out trying to find that affordable machine that just lays down the lines, that's what you should do. He goes on to say, this was when the trial and error took hold. We used everything, starting with Kelly Criswell, dabbled with Airless Co. and Titan sprayers, until we finally reached a victor with the Greco 3900. However, it wasn't until we landed that first Greco HS when we realized hydraulic systems are the way to go for high volume striping. He goes on to say, we sold all of our machines the next year for a full hydraulic transformation. So, quick answer for a new company, go with Greco 3900 and take it from there. That's what he says when he first got started. Now, his advice to people that are wanting to get into industry is this: learn the trade, practice the techniques, train a team, and delegate the right way. Network with like-minded individuals in the industry, bring on customers from all walks of life, and most importantly, know failing is a part of the learning process. Take it as motivation. If somebody you see is experiencing a lot of success, the chances are is they've failed a lot before they reached that point. He says to learn the trade, and that's very important. And not a lot of people are interested in helping other people to learn this trade. That's one of the reasons why we created the How to Stripe course, guys, is to teach guys this. Because when I first got started, I was working 3 jobs. So next you have Nick Howell. Okay, I don't know who Nick Howell is. He is with TNT Asphalt Services. I have no idea who he is, but I've never met him, but I'm sure he's a great guy. So he goes on to say, Greco all the way. They are always innovating with cutting edge technology that's in addition to a strong dealer and support network. You know, I'd love to say that. But I have not had a good experience with Greco so far. I mean, when I told them that my 3400 was malfunctioning, it was almost like they didn't even care. It was like, I haven't had good customer service with Greco. I'm not saying that I don't love the machines. It's just like whenever I encountered a problem, I did not feel like they were interested in offering me a solution. I just wanted to know why my machine wasn't working. Not to say that the entire company's that way, but at least the representatives that are in my area, they're not that good, I don't think. But he says, I would start with the Greco 3900 auto layout and lasers. I would also add the line driver HD. Having the technology saves so much time, and it can even make many projects a one-man job. This is true also. Those 3900s with auto layouts will save you so much time, especially if you want to delegate multiple crews on different projects. It can save a lot of time from pop and string. You just get a laser with that box, and it really does cut time and will ultimately save you a lot of money. Now, he's recommending to start with a Greco 3900 with an auto layout and lasers, right? Like, that's a good setup. But understand something, guys. If you do not have an existing business and you don't have a lot of money in your bank account to invest in one of these machines, I do not recommend that you drop 20 grand on a setup like this with no customers whatsoever. Now, if you're like your second year, third year, I mean, you have a steady influx of customers that are coming in every month. You're highly ranked on Google, and you're wearing out smaller machines, and you can afford some risk and some debt. Go with a better and bigger setup. But unless you have an extra 20 grand to burn and sit on a setup like this without having a steady influx of customers, don't do that. Start off with something smaller. 3,500 or 3,400, perfectly sufficient, unless you have money to invest. So he says right here, there are multiple pieces of advice, so pick one for yourself. Know business principles, basic finance, etc. It's very important to know your numbers to bid properly, and bidding properly is life or death in succeeding. Now, here's a statistic. The SBA states that 66% of small businesses fail within the first 10 years, and most owners never knew their cost. So he states a statistical fact that 66% are going to fail. And there's a high probability that you're going to fail in your business, right? And he associates with knowing those business principles and then bidding properly. That's one of the reasons why within the How to Stripe course, we give you a pricing guide and we kind of give you a basic understanding of a pricing structure. That way you have a general idea of what to charge. Now, when you start, you're going to be towards linear feet, right? Everyone does, but you're going to grow, right? It's not just going to be linear feet, but then it's going to be mobilization, right? Like your mobility. What's it going to cost you? Well, it's 15 lines and it's a 15 lines and one handicap, right? Well, now when I first started, we would do that, $400, something like that. Well, now I'm at like 750 or 800 because it costs me more for me and a guy to go out to do a smaller project because I'm going to burn through the majority of my day. See what I'm saying? So he's 100% right, knowing those business principles. He says, work someone for a season. Hard to do when you want to bust out on your own, but the knowledge is priceless. Plus, you make the industry contacts too. This is good as well. So he's saying, get some experience, work for somebody. The hard thing about that is a lot of people that I know that are bringing on employees are making them sign a non-compete agreement because striping is so easy to start. It's not a complicated thing. A lot of people make it seem like striping is like this overly complicated thing. You just need to know the basics. The hard part is the customer acquisition part, right? And that's one of the things that I like about the How to Stripe course is we not only teach you how to stripe and paint a parking lot, we give you the basic understanding and the knowledge of how to do this, but we also go into multiple different ways of customer acquisition, Facebook ads, optimizing a GMB profile, cold calling strategies, email marketing, county assessors maps. I mean, there are so many ways that we teach you how to get customers in the How to Stripe course. There's no way that someone cannot succeed unless they're just lazy. Then he says, be lean and mean, keep cost as low as possible, grow slow. So this is very good advice as well. You don't get into this idea that you have to continue to grow and add more employees and just get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, because you don't want to get into a point where you've got to depend. If someone doesn't send in payroll next week, your business is going to have to file for bankruptcy and you're not going to be able to make payroll. You don't want to do that. You don't want your company and the people that depend on you their lives to be in jeopardy like that. You don't want to do that. So be lean and mean, keep costs as low as possible, grow slow. That's great advice. He also says invest in the best equipment possible. If you can't afford it, it's probably not time to start your business. Now, I disagree with this. I disagree with this statement right here. Now, it's great advice, but we started with a 3500. It's not the best machine, but it's good enough to get you started. And we've just grown ever since. So, you know what I mean? If you can't afford, just because you can't afford a 3500, 3400, it does not mean it's not time to start your business. Like I said, I know people that went out and made several thousands their first job hand rolling with tape and rollers and paint. So I don't really agree with this statement right here. If you can't afford it, it's probably not time to start your business, but understanding that we probably need more context to what he's saying. But then he goes on to say, get set up properly, incorporation, insurance, licenses, etc. 100% get set up properly. 100% agree. And this is important too. This is why, this is another thing that we included in the How to Stripe course, is just giving a basic understanding of different entities and setting up business licenses and the steps and the precautions that you should take that are not associated with any particular area, but it just helps you be consciously aware if you've never done this before. And that's what our goal was. So then he says, hire a consultant, never stop learning. The money spent on a consultant will likely triple coming right back to you. This is true right here, investing in yourself. And unfortunately, this is something that a lot of people don't like to do. They don't like to invest in themselves because they think that they could just figure it out on their own. And this is true. You can probably figure it out on your own. But if you invest money to better yourself and you spend money to educate yourself, you will learn from people who've been there and done that in a shorter amount of time. So you won't have to be like one of the people in these group chats that are like, I spent 20 years learning how to do this myself. You don't have to do that. You can cut that learning curve, spend $2,000, learn all that stuff in a year, and then bypass everybody else. Okay. So then you have Marvin Joles from Wizcoat and Blacktop Banner. Marvin is a great guy. I met him at Payvax as well. We have some collaboration projects coming up in the future. I'm going to bring him on the channel, and I'm looking forward to that. So he goes on to say the Titan Powerliner 4500, it is fun to exercise the versatility it offers. He says, I would start with a simple machine that offers quality, like the Titan Powerliner 3500 or the Greco 3400, and as well as a starter stencil kit. Perfect advice right here. This is amazing right here. And this is what I really like about Marvin is I'm not saying that like the other people set like these unrealistic expectations, but it's like, here he goes. He mentions a machine that is obviously expensive, but then he doesn't tell people, well, if you can't afford the best, don't get into the industry because, you know, obviously you can't afford the best. Well, people working at Burger King aren't going to be able to afford the best machine to start with. So that's what I like about Marvin is he gives practical tips and realistic advice to people. He says, I would start with a simple machine that offers quality like a 35 or a 3400. Totally agree. Marvin really did a great job there. He goes on to say, if you're starting out, try to find a mentor or join a group where stripers exist online to get any questions answered and gain basic knowledge. This is key as well. Community is key. This is why we have the Discord group chat for people who are in the industry. It's packed with seasoned veterans, right? Like the Discord is packed with seasoned vets who offer solutions to people that are newcomers getting into the industry. Nobody gets made fun of in there. You know, there's no stupid question in there. And I'm glad that we have people that are available to us like those guys. Of course, there's more in there, but I'm kind of drawing a blank now. So as we keep going in the article from Marco Minna from All Out Parking Lots, he says, the Greco 3900, as you are able to do both stall work and stencil work with them. So the machine is strong enough to connect to a line driver as well. Most 3900s have the auto layout and the spot laser that comes with it as well. I will say this, that was a difference. That was a game changer though, whenever we got the 3900 and then it had dual gun capabilities. So if you want a stencil, you don't have to detach the armbar gun. You could just take it off and then stencil it. That was nice. That was really nice about it. So he goes on to say, I would go with at least two 3900 Gracos and one 3400. It's good to have at least 3 machines so you can have one set up in white paint, the other in yellow, and the 34 for blue and handicap areas. I highly agree right here. Doing color changes on a job is miserable. But when you guys are just starting out, you're not going to be striping every single day. It was getting to the point where we were doing color changes on every job. I mean, almost every job we would have to be doing color changes, and it is very miserable. Now we have 3 machines, but we started off with 1. You know, like right here, I would go with at least 2 3900s in Greco, and I would go with at least 2 3900 Gracos and a 3400. It's great advice if you've got the money, okay? But understand that if you don't have the money, it's okay. Start with something small like Marvin said, and it'll be good. So then he says, being open to work the overnight shift is where you will be able to get the most of your work done. Because most people that are already in the industry, or because most people that are starting in the industry are most likely working a job. Like most of the people that I deal with that reach out to me, they're like, hey, Chris, I've already got a job. I want to start striping on the side. Can you help me out? Okay. He says being able to work the overnight shift is where you're going to be able to get the most of your work done. So this is true that striping is mostly done at night, but also understanding that if you're working a full-time job, you're going to have to work during the day, come home and get a little bit of sleep, and then go stripe at night and then work all day long. I mean, it's going to be difficult at first. So you need to prepare for that. But then he says most job sites and parking lots you need to service will be empty. Do the best to always answer your phone for your customers and give them realistic expectations of when you can complete the work. Reach out to all your local and asphalt seal coating contractors in your service area and let them know you'll be able to stripe for them. Most of these companies do not self-perform their own striping. They are always looking for contractors to follow up on their crews. This is true. One of the fastest ways you can grow as a company is to do what he just said. My friend Mario from Radiant Striping, I talked to him the other day, and most of his work is coming from a paving contractor that's keeping him busy all the time now. Definitely recommend what he just said. So here is Todd E from A&A Paving. I don't know Todd personally, but I did see him at Pavex, and I know that we are connections on LinkedIn. He says, we only use Greco line lasers 59 series. They have been our go-to machines forever, and we own a bunch. They are tough, they take a beating, and spray perfect lines every time. Our striping team won't use anything else. Well, you have to understand that Todd's probably been in the industry for a long time. He says, depending upon how much striping someone plans to do in their first year, work with Greco or your local supplier to see what size they recommend for that workload and then get one series bigger. This is interesting. Very, very interesting. He says, you will grow and the equipment you start with won't be the equipment you need 1 to 2 years later. This is 100% correct. I mean, he nailed it on the head, because immediately whenever I started, it wasn't 6 months into it and I already needed another machine. But we weren't busy enough to afford a bigger machine yet, 10 grand. So I got another one for, half that price. So he says, you will grow and the equipment you start with won't be the equipment you need 1 to 2 years later. Upsize now and be prepared for growth from the beginning. This is true. I recommend it if you can afford it. He says, cross-train everyone. Great stripers can be hard to find, train, test everyone on that crew, so you will have a team of great stripers. We always tell our striping team a $500 striping job can ruin a $100,000 paving job if the lines are off. They are cherry on top of it when it comes to a great job. That's a very interesting perspective. I've never I've never thought about it like that. Brad Woodall from Stripe It Up says, our current go-to machine is a Greco 5900 auto layout with GL 1000 laser and a chalk liner hooked up to a Greco line driver. This setup makes you so efficient. It is expensive, but the saying goes, time is money, and we can accomplish many more projects a day with this setup. This is good. This is very good. The fact that, he gives context for why this is necessary. He doesn't just say, if you can't afford it, don't get into the industry. So I'm glad he gives context here. He also says, I wouldn't start a striping company without a minimum of 2 stripers. Y'all already know my opinion about that, but everyone has to start somewhere, okay? So one machine would be what I mentioned above, which that's okay. But the next machine would be a Greco 3900. Having 2 machines will help you not only changing colors on the job, but these machines are built to last. Rebuild the pumps annually and they will last a long time. We still have a Greco 3500 that we bought in 1995 in one addition to a line driver and the biggest trailer you can afford. This is right too. I bought a trailer 6 months ago and I already need to upgrade it because we now have 3 machines. He says, my advice to someone starting out in this business is it's not easy. It's a lot of hard work and long hours. And this is especially true. It is not easy, but I will say this. I told a guy on the phone yesterday. He called and he was telling me he's going to start a striping business and he was thinking about getting into it and yada, yada, yada. And I told him, I said, if this is something that's just going to be a side hobby, it's not gonna go anywhere, right? Like whenever I first started, I did not have the option to fail. I had to succeed. I was working at a minimum wage job and a job at night and then another job on the weekends. So I was working 3 jobs whenever I first started. So whenever I started my business, there was not an option to fail, right? I knew it wasn't going to be easy and I knew it was going to be a lot of hard work and long hours. I was prepared for that. But what I did was I built a brand and a reputation at first. I didn't just focus on money. And I know guys that run 100 grand their first year, which is a lot, but then the next year they're running 60 or 30. It's like, you should continually be going up, but they're going up, down, up, down, up, down. Sacrifice a year to build up your customer funnel, to build up your social proof and presence and your customers and your customer reputation. So He says, my advice is okay. The painting aspect is only one element and sometimes the easiest. This is true. Striping, I said it earlier in this video, striping is not that difficult, okay? Striping isn't hard. It's the marketing and customer acquisition that's a lot harder because you're competing against other people within the marketplace. I'm competing against 30 other companies, okay? He's saying it's not easy, and the painting is the easiest part. So not only are you striping the jobs, you're estimating, invoicing, etc. We work every day unless it rains, including weekends and holidays. Most people are off on the weekends enjoying themselves at the lake or golfing. All of our guys are sacrificing this time. I'm so fortunate for every employee. I've been blessed with you guys, with great guy. I've been blessed with great guys. Without the guys, our company would not be able to service all of our customers. So this is nice. I mean, this is his perception. Personally, we take off for Sunday for church. So, you know, to each his own. I mean, if he works his guys on the weekends, that's perfect. But Sundays for me are the Lord's day, and I'd rather not grow as fast and honor the Lord on the Lord's day than to grow fast and not honor him. Anyways, guys, this article is titled Best Practices for Starting a Striping Business. I will link it down in the comment section and the description. Also, if you're interested in starting a striping business and you want an 8-hour training, we have the How to Stripe course. If you guys are interested in that, it will be the first link in the pinned comment section and the description. And if you like seeing content like this where we cover news articles and striping related content, like the video. Be sure to like the video. That way it lets me know that you guys are into this kind of content. And we will see y'all in the next video.